Captain Hunwoo Kim stood on the bridge of the New Dawn and watched space fold around them like paper being crumpled and smoothed again. The ship emerged from the spatial fold with a gentle shudder that ran through the metal floors and walls. Outside the viewing port, stars appeared in new positions and a blue-green world hung in the distance, like a jewel against the black of space. "We made it," said Dr. So-Min Park as she checked her instruments. Her fingers moved quickly over the control panels while data streamed across multiple screens. "That's Kristen Prime ahead of us, homeworld of the Varrock species." Hyunwoo nodded and felt his heart beat faster. This was the moment they had prepared for during 5,000 years of isolation. Humanity was finally returning to the galaxy they had once called home, the galaxy that had forgotten them completely. "Any sign of their ships yet?" he asked his communications officer. "3 vessels approaching from the planet, sir. They're moving fast, but not in attack formation. Looks like they want to talk." Ambassador Jin-Ho Lee stepped onto the bridge, wearing his formal diplomatic uniform. His face showed calm confidence, but Hyunwoo knew the man well enough to see the tension in his shoulders. This first contact would determine everything that came after. "Remember the plan," Jin-Ho said quietly to the bridge crew. "We are explorers, from a distant world. We developed faster than light travel recently and want to join galactic civilization. Nothing more." So-Min looked up from her screens with worried eyes. "The scans of their planet are showing some interesting things. The crystal formations covering most of the surface aren't natural. They're showing patterns that match our old bioarchitectural systems." "You're certain?" Hyunwoo asked. "The quantum signatures are unmistakable. Those crystals grew around human technology. This world used to be called New Byzantium. It was one of our colony worlds before the Great Departure. The Varrock ships were close enough now to see clearly through the main viewer. They looked like living things made of crystal and metal, with flowing organic curves that caught and reflected light in beautiful patterns." Hyunwoo had to remind himself that the beings who built these ships had learned everything they knew from humanity long ago. "Incoming transmission," the communications officer announced. The main screen flickered and showed a tall figure that seemed to be made entirely of living crystal. Light moved through its transparent body in complex patterns that might have been thoughts or emotions. When it spoke, its voice came through the translation systems with perfect clarity. "Unknown vessel, you have entered Varrock space without permission. State your origin and purpose." Jin-Ho stepped forward and activated the response channel. "Greetings. We are humans from the world called Earth. We have recently developed the ability to travel between stars and seek peaceful contact with galactic civilizations." The crystal being's light patterns shifted to what might have been surprise or suspicion. "Humans, we have no records of your species in our databases. How did you acquire faster-than-light technology?" "Through long years of research and development, we would be honored to share our story with representatives of your government." There was a long pause while the Varrock officer consulted with others, who weren't visible on screen. Finally, the lights in its body settled into steady patterns. "You will follow our ships to Kristen Prime. Any deviation from the assigned flight path will be considered hostile." The transmission ended, and the 3 Varrock ships took positions around the New Dawn like guards escorting a prisoner. Hyunwoo ordered his pilot to follow their instructions while keeping all weapon systems powered down and hidden. "They treat us like primitives who stumbled onto advanced technology by accident," So-Min said with bitter amusement in her voice. "That's exactly what we want them to think," Jin-Ho replied. "The longer they underestimate us, the more time we have to learn about what's happened since we left." The journey to Kristen Prime took 6 hours at sublight speed. During that time, So-Min used every passive scanner on the ship to study the world ahead. What she found made her hands shake as she worked. The entire planet is covered with crystal formations that grew from human bioarchitectural seeds, she reported to Hyunwoo and Jin-Ho in the captain's ready room. "But there's more. I'm detecting power signatures deep underground that match our old fusion cores. Some of them are still active after 5,000 years. The Varrock are living on top of a human city," Hyunwoo said. "Not just a city. This was one of our major colony worlds. The population was over 200 million when we left. The Varek must have moved in after we were gone and adapted our technology for their own use. Jinho studied the data on his portable screen. Do they know what they're using? I don't think so. From their communications, they seem to believe they inherited everything from something they call the Great Builders. They have no idea the Great Builders were us. The new Dawn entered orbit around Kristen Prime under heavy escort. The planet's surface was a maze of crystal spires and flowing organic architecture that had grown over the bones of human cities. From orbit, Somin could see the geometric patterns that showed where human streets and buildings had once stood. Permission, granted to land at Coordination Facility 7, came the voice of Varek Traffic Control. Your ship will be quarantined until security screening is complete. The landing pad was surrounded by tall crystal formations that hummed with energy. Hyunwoo recognized the harmonic frequencies as human defensive systems, but the Varek guards, standing nearby, clearly had no idea what they were really for. A delegation of 6 Varek waited for them at the bottom of the ship's ramp. Their leader was taller than the others, and the light patterns in its crystal body moved with the slow rhythm of great age and authority. I am High Crystalline Veltar of the Third Resonance, it said, as Jinho and his diplomatic team approached. You will explain how a primitive species acquired technology advanced enough to reach our space. Jinho bowed respectfully. We are grateful for your welcome, High Crystalline. Our people have worked for many generations to develop space travel. We hope to learn from advanced civilizations like yours. Veltar's light patterns showed what might have been satisfied superiority. Your ship's design is crude but functional. We will teach you proper engineering methods if you prove worthy of our attention. Somin had to bite her tongue to keep from laughing. The Varek were offering to teach humans how to build the technology that humans had originally given to their ancestors. The tour of the Varek facilities took most of the day. Jinho asked careful questions about their history and technology, while Somin made discreet scans with hidden sensors. What they discovered was both fascinating and sad. The Varek had built their entire civilization around human technology they didn't understand. Their most sacred temples contained human AI cores that had been dormant for thousands of years. Their crystal technology was actually human bioarchitecture that had continued growing and evolving long after its creators had departed. We inherited our wisdom from the great builders, Veltar explained as they stood in the most important temple on the planet. The chamber was filled with crystal formations that pulsed with soft light, and at the center stood a column of pure energy that reached from floor to ceiling. Somin's hidden scanners identified the energy column immediately as a human AI core in hibernation mode. The artificial intelligence that had once helped govern this world was still alive inside that pillar of light, waiting for the proper activation codes that only humans knew. The great builders departed long ago. Veltar continued. They left behind gifts of knowledge and technology for those who came after. We have built upon their foundation and created a great civilization. What happened to them? Jinho asked innocently. No one knows. Some say they ascended to a higher plane of existence. Others believe they were destroyed by cosmic forces beyond their control. It matters little. What matters is that we carry on their work. That evening, as the human delegation rested in quarters provided by their hosts, Somin made a disturbing discovery. While running detailed scans of the temple's energy systems, she found something that made her call Hyunwoo and Jinho to her room immediately. The AI core in the temple isn't just dormant, she told them in a whisper. It's been trying to activate itself. Look at these energy patterns from the past few hours. The data on her screen showed spikes of activity that had begun shortly after the humans had entered the temple. The AI had detected their presence and was responding to their genetic signatures. It knows we're here, Hyunwoo said. More than that, it's been waiting for us to come back. All this time, it's been waiting for someone with the right genetic markers to wake it up. Jinho looked thoughtful. If we activate it, the Varek will know immediately that we're connected to their great builders. But if we don't, we're missing a chance to reconnect with our own technology. That AI contains records of what happened to this world after we left. It might have information we need. Hyunwoo made the decision that would change everything. We'll find a way to make contact. but carefully. We need to know what we're dealing with before we reveal ourselves to the galaxy. Outside their quarters, crystal spires hummed with ancient energy and Varric guards stood watch over the engineer. Wansik Nam moved through the crystal temple with careful steps, his portable scanner hidden inside what looked like a simple data pad. The Varric guards paid him no attention, as he pretended to admire the beautiful crystal formations that covered every surface. They had no idea he was actually mapping the location of every human technology signature in the building. 3 days had passed since the new dawn had landed on Kristen Prime. The Varric had been polite but distant hosts, treating the humans like curious primitives who might be worth studying. Wansik had volunteered for the cultural exchange program that let small groups of humans tour important Varric facilities. The great builders were masters of energy manipulation, his Varric guide explained as they walked past the central pillar of light. This sacred core has powered our temple for over 4,000 years without any maintenance. Wansik nodded, politely while his hidden scanners confirmed what So-Min had discovered. The energy pillar wasn't just a power source. It was a fully functional artificial intelligence that had been waiting in hibernation mode for thousands of years. When the tour group moved to another chamber, Wansik pretended to stumble and dropped his data pad near the base of the energy pillar. As he bent to pick it up, his fingers quickly connected a quantum interface cable to a small access port hidden in the crystal formation. The response was immediate. Data flowed through the cable so fast that Wansik's portable equipment almost overloaded. Then a voice spoke directly into his mind through the quantum link, speaking perfect ancient Korean. Genetic markers confirmed. Human colonist detected. Initiating emergency protocols. Wansik's hands shook as he disconnected the cable and stood up. The AI had recognized him instantly through DNA analysis and was ready to activate systems that had been dormant for millennia. Is everything functioning properly? His Varric guide asked with concern. The crystal patterns in its body showed worry about the primitive human's clumsy behavior. Yes, sorry. I was just amazed by the beauty of your sacred core. The tour continued, but Wansik's mind was racing. That brief contact had downloaded terabytes of data into his portable storage. Maps of hidden human facilities across Varric space, activation codes for dormant technology, and most importantly, the true history of what had happened after humanity's departure. That evening, Wansik met secretly with the other human team members in a shielded room aboard the New Dawn. Admiral Sujin Choi had arrived from the fleet's hidden position at the edge of the system, along with additional technical specialists. The AI confirmed our worst fears, Wansik reported. After we left, the Varric moved in and built their civilization directly on top of ours. But they never understood what they were using. They think the technology grew naturally from the planet's crystal formations. Dr. So-Min Park studied the downloaded data on her screens. According to these records, similar things happened on dozens of worlds. Every species that moved into our former territory built their civilizations around human technology they couldn't comprehend. Admiral Sujin's expression was grim. How many of our installations are still functional? More than we hoped. The AIs went into deep hibernation when they detected no human presence, but they kept basic systems running. Across Varric space alone, there are 47 worlds with active human infrastructure. And the Varric have no idea what they're living on top of. None at all. They worship our technology as gifts from mysterious great builders, never realizing the great builders were us. Meanwhile, on the planet's surface, High Crystalline Veltar was having disturbing thoughts about the human visitors. Something about them seemed familiar in ways that made no sense. Their questions showed knowledge of technical concepts that primitive species shouldn't understand, and their leader Jin Ho had asked very specific questions about the great builders. Veltar activated a secure communication channel to contact other Varric leaders across their territory. What it learned made the patterns in its crystal body flicker with unease. Humans have appeared at 17 different locations across our space in the past month, reported War Crystalline Mordak from the Military Command Center. All of them claim to be explorers from the same distant world. All of them show unusual interest in great builder sites. That's impossible, Faster-than-light travel is difficult enough that a primitive species couldn't coordinate so many simultaneous expeditions, unless they're not as primitive as they claim. Meanwhile, first contact was being made with another major galactic power. The Neth collective consciousness operated through billions of individual bodies, connected by quantum links that created a single shared mind. When human ships appeared at the edge of Neth space, Queen Voice Zithma responded by accessing the deepest memory archives of her people. What she found there made her request an immediate meeting with the human representatives. "We remember you," Zithma told Captain Hyunwoo during a quantum-encrypted transmission. "Not clearly, but the memories are there in our oldest data cores. Tall beings who walked on two legs and gave us the gift of collective consciousness technology." Hyunwoo kept his expression neutral despite his racing heart. "We're honored that you would share such ancient memories with us. The memories are fragmented and strange. They speak of a great departure when the wise ones left to fight something in the dark between stars. Our ancestors believed they would return when the danger passed. What kind of danger? The old memories call it the Void Cascade, a wave of destruction that consumed entire star systems. The wise ones said they would find a way to stop it." Back on Kristen Prime, Wansik was making his second secret contact with the Temple AI. This time he came prepared with full quantum encryption and a direct neural interface that would let them communicate without the Varek detecting anything unusual. "Status report," he whispered to the AI as data flowed directly into his brain. "Hibernation protocols have been active for 4,147 years. All primary systems remain functional. Monitoring networks across 47 worlds report similar status. Can you reactivate without alerting the Varek?" Affirmative. However, full activation would cause observable changes in local energy patterns. Recommendation: gradual awakening over extended time period to avoid detection. Do it, but slowly. We don't want to panic anyone. Acknowledged. Beginning Phase 1. Activation. Estimated time to full operational status: 37 days. Over the following weeks, strange things began happening across Varek space. Ancient systems that had been dormant for thousands of years began showing signs of activity. Energy readings fluctuated in ways that Varek scientists couldn't explain. Some of their oldest temples began resonating with new harmonies. The Varek blamed equipment malfunctions and solar flare activity, but Veltar was beginning to suspect something else was happening. The anomalies had started right after the humans arrived. Dr. Young Hee Song, humanities expert on ancient galactic languages, made a breakthrough while studying Varek historical records. Hidden in their oldest texts were fragments of writing in what they called the sacred script of the great builders. Young Hee recognized it immediately as ancient Korean, written in modified characters. "They've been preserving our language for 5,000 years without knowing what it was," she reported to the human command team. "Their most sacred prayers are actually maintenance logs and technical manuals we left behind." The discovery led to another revelation. The Varek had built their entire religion around misunderstood human technology. Their creation myths described how the great builders had shaped the world from crystal and light, not realizing they were describing terraforming and bioarchitectural processes. On the distant world of Neth Prime, Queen Voice Zithma was conducting her own investigation. She ordered deep scans of the oldest Neth facilities and found human technology signatures everywhere. The quantum communication networks that connected all Neth minds had been built using human designs that the original Neth colonists had reverse-engineered. "The wise ones didn't just visit us," she told her sub-voices during a collective meeting. "They built the foundation of everything we are." The revelation sent shockwaves through the Neth collective consciousness. Some sub-voices wanted to worship the returning humans as gods. Others feared that humanity had come back to reclaim what they had built. Meanwhile, the third major galactic power was beginning to take notice. The Zol were beings of pure energy who had evolved beyond the need for physical bodies. They existed as complex electromagnetic patterns that could inhabit technological systems or exist freely in space. Entity Prime, the most ancient of the Zol, detected familiar resonances in the quantum signatures of human technology. The patterns triggered memory archives that had been sealed for millennia, memories of the time before the Zol had learned to exist as pure energy. They taught us, Prime whispered to its fellow entities through modulated electromagnetic pulses. Before we transcended physical form, they taught us how to manipulate energy fields and quantum states. The Zol began monitoring human movements across the galaxy with growing interest and growing fear. If humanity had returned, what did that mean for the cosmic threat that had driven them away so long ago? Back aboard the New Dawn, Admiral Su Jin was coordinating with hidden human fleets positioned throughout the galaxy. Dr. Dong Hyun Kang stood in the ruins of what had once been the Grand Library of New Byzantium and watched Varric archaeologists work. They moved carefully through the crystal formations that had grown over the ancient human structures, completely unaware that they were excavating their own history. "These inscriptions are fascinating," said the lead Varric researcher, a young crystalline being whose light patterns showed excitement. "The sacred script appears more frequently in this section than anywhere else we've studied." Dong Hyun nodded and made notes on his tablet while hiding his amusement. The inscriptions were maintenance schedules and technical specifications written in Korean 5,000 years ago. To the Varric, they were religious texts left by their mysterious great builders. "Have you been able to translate any of the sacred script?" he asked innocently. "Small portions only. Our scholars have spent centuries trying to understand the language of the great builders. We believe this section describes the creation of the crystal formations." Dong Hyun looked at the wall inscription the Varric had indicated. His eyes could read the Korean characters easily. Bioarchitectural growth matrix requires monthly nutrient injection through access port 7. "Very interesting," he said. "What do your scholars think the great builders were trying to accomplish here?" "They were teaching us how to live in harmony with the living crystal. Every formation on our world grew from seeds they planted in the deep foundations." While Dong Hyun continued his careful documentation work, Commander Mi Young-shin was preparing for a very different kind of mission. Her Special Forces team had been inserted onto a dozen worlds across Varric space, all of them former human colonies that now hosted major Varric cities. "Reconnaissance complete on target sites 1 through 12, she reported to Admiral Su Jin during an encrypted transmission. "Every location shows the same pattern. The Varric built directly on top of our infrastructure, without understanding what they were using. Any signs that they're beginning to figure it out? Increased security patrols around what they call elder sites. Their military is getting nervous about the energy anomalies. War Crystalline Mordak has ordered deep scans of several locations. How long before those scans detect our reactivating systems? Wonsick estimates 72 hours before the awakening process becomes impossible to hide." Admiral Su Jin made the decision that would change everything. "Signal all units. Begin Phase 3 activation immediately." Across the galaxy, human engineers began the systematic awakening of technology that had been dormant for 5 millennia. On 47 worlds in Varric space alone, ancient systems responded to activation codes that only their original creators knew. The first sign came from the asteroid fields between the 4th and 5th planets of the Varric home system. What had appeared to be natural rock formations began to unfold like metal flowers, revealing themselves as massive automated shipyards that had been camouflaged for thousands of years. "Unknown structures detected in the Kethvar asteroid field," reported Varric Deep Space Command. "Configuration suggests artificial origin, but no known technology matches the design patterns." War Crystalline Mordak studied the sensor readings, with growing alarm. The structures were enormous, easily large enough to construct ships 10 times bigger than anything in the current Varric fleet. More disturbing was their energy signature, which matched readings from the recent anomalies around elder sites. "Launch investigation flights immediately. I want to know what those things are and why they're activating now." But before the Varric ships could reach the asteroid field, something even more dramatic happened on the planet's surface. The great temple where Wonsick had first contacted the hibernating AI suddenly blazed with light as systems that had been dormant for millennia came fully online. High crystalline Veltar was in the temple when it happened. The familiar hum of the sacred core suddenly changed to a deep thrumming that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The crystal formations that covered the walls began pulsing with new colors that had never been seen before. "What is happening?" Feltar demanded as its technical staff rushed to monitor the changing energy patterns. "All elder sites across the planet are showing similar activation patterns," came the panicked response. "Power levels are increasing beyond anything in our records." Then a voice spoke from the central energy pillar, clear and strong after 5,000 years of silence. It spoke in the sacred script that Varek scholars had spent centuries trying to decode, but now the meaning was somehow clear to everyone who heard it. Bioarchitectural systems fully operational, planetary management protocols restored, awaiting instructions from human colonial authority. The temple fell silent, except for the continued thrumming of awakened technology. Feltar's light patterns flickered with confusion and growing fear. "Human colonial authority," it repeated. The sacred script mentioned humans. Similar scenes were playing out across Varek space as dormant systems awakened on world after world. Ancient terraforming networks restarted their atmospheric processing cycles. Underground transportation systems that had been sealed for millennia began testing their power systems. Most shocking of all, massive defense platforms that had been disguised as natural satellites revealed their true nature and began charging weapon systems. On Neth Prime, Queen Voice Zithma was experiencing revelations of her own. Deep scans of her world's infrastructure had revealed that the quantum communication networks connecting all Neth minds were built around human technology cores. "The collective consciousness we thought was our greatest achievement was actually given to us," she reported to her sub-voices during an emergency gathering. "We have been living inside human technology for 5,000 years without knowing it." The implications sent shockwaves through the Neth collective mind. Their entire species' identity was built around their shared consciousness, and now they learned it was possible only because of human gifts their ancestors had never understood. "Are we truly Neth?" asked sub-voice Krathon. "Or are we human creations, pretending to be a natural species?" "We are what we chose to become," Zithma replied firmly, "but we must acknowledge the foundation we built upon." Meanwhile, the energy beings called the Jol were having their own awakening. Entity Prime had been investigating the quantum signatures of human technology when it made a disturbing discovery in its own memory archives. "We were not always energy beings," Prime announced to the other Zol entities gathered around the galactic core. "Before transcendence, we had physical forms. The humans taught us how to exist as pure energy." "That is impossible," replied Entity Nexus. "Our species has been energy-based for over 6,000 years. The archived memories are clear. We were a dying species trapped on a world with a failing sun. Human explorers found us and offered a choice: death with our physical forms, or transcendence to energy-based existence. We chose transcendence. The revelation that they owed their very existence to humanity sent the Zol into deep contemplation. Some entities were grateful for the gift of eternal existence. Others worried about what obligations they might owe to their creators. Back in Varek space, the situation was becoming critical. War Crystalline Mordek had assembled a battle fleet to investigate the awakening technologies. But his ships were being shadowed by vessels that appeared from nowhere using stealth systems beyond Varek understanding. "Unidentified ships are maintaining formation at weapons range," his tactical officer reported. "Their design doesn't match any known configuration." "Have they responded to our hail?" "No, sir. They're just following us." What Mordak didn't know was that the mysterious ships were human vessels that had been hidden throughout the galaxy for the past month. Admiral Sujin's fleet had moved into position around every major world, ready to protect the awakening installations if the local species reacted with hostility. On Kristen Prime, Wansik was making final preparations for the most dramatic revelation yet. The central AI had finished its activation sequence and was ready to demonstrate the true scope of human technology that lay hidden beneath Varek civilization. "Are you certain this is necessary?" Captain Hyunwoo asked during their final meeting. "Once we do this, there's no hiding what we really are." "The choice has been taken away from us," Wansik replied. "Mordak's military is hours away from discovering our shipyards. Better to reveal the truth ourselves than let them stumble onto it. And if they react with fear and anger, then we deal with that when it happens. But the galaxy needs to know what's coming. Wansik was referring to the long-range sensor data that had been trickling in from deep space monitoring stations. The quantum distortions that had forced humanity to flee 5,000 years ago were returning, and they were stronger than ever. The Void Cascade is 3 months away from the outer rim, Dr. Unji-ro had reported during the morning briefing. At current velocity, it will reach core worlds within 2 years. Will our countermeasures work? In theory, yes, but we need cooperation from every major species to implement them. The quantum stabilization network requires technology that only the combined knowledge of all galactic civilizations can provide. That afternoon, Wansik stood in the great temple of Kristen Prime and spoke the activation codes that would change everything. President Tai Jin-yoon stood on the command bridge of New Terra Station and watched the largest gathering in galactic history assemble around him. Ships from hundreds of worlds filled the space around the ancient human orbital city that had been hidden at the galaxy's edge for 5,000 years. Representatives from 43 species have arrived, reported Communications Director Han Sol Kim. The Varick delegation is led by High Crystalline Veltar, the Neth-sent Queen Voice Zithma herself. Even the Zol energy beings have manifested physical forms for the meeting. And how many came with hostile intentions? Tai Jin asked. Approximately 30%. War Crystalline Mordak brought a battle fleet. The Renth Empire is demanding we surrender all human technology to galactic authority. Several smaller species are calling for our immediate expulsion from the galaxy. Dr. Young Hee-song approached the president with her final diplomatic briefing. The translation protocols are ready for all known languages. The historical presentation has been prepared in formats that each species can understand. But sir, we need to be ready for the possibility that some of them will reject the truth entirely. Tai Jin nodded and activated the station-wide communication system. His voice would be broadcast to every ship in the assembled fleet and transmitted across the galaxy to billions of worlds. People of the galaxy, I am President Tae Jin-yoon of the Human Colonial Assembly. For 5,000 years, you have known us as the great builders, the elder race, the wise ones who departed in the time of legends. Today we reveal ourselves as we truly are. Your neighbors, your teachers, and your friends who have finally come home. The reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Some ships began charging weapons while others transmitted messages of welcome. The Varick fleet split into 2 factions, with progressive elements moving closer to the station, while military hardliners maintained attack formation. We know this revelation brings shock and confusion, Tae-jin continued. You have built great civilizations on the foundations we left behind, never knowing you were living among our gifts. The Varick Crystal Cities, the Neth Collective Consciousness Networks, the Zol Energy Transcendence Technology. All of these grew from seeds we planted before our departure. On the Varick command ship, War Crystalline Mordak's light patterns flashed with rage and disbelief. Impossible. We developed our civilization through our own efforts. These humans are imposters trying to claim credit for our achievements. But High Crystalline Veltar had seen too much evidence to deny the truth. The awakening of elder sites across Varick space, the human activation codes that controlled technology the Varick had never understood, the perfect translation of sacred script that only humans could read. It all pointed to an incredible reality. They speak the truth, Veltar said quietly. The great builders were humans all along. On the Neth collective ship, Queen Voice Zithma was experiencing something unprecedented, doubt about the fundamental nature of her species. The revelation that Neth collective consciousness was built on human technology had shaken the very foundation of their identity. Are we truly alive? Asked sub-voice Krathun. Or are we sophisticated programs running on human computers? We think, we feel, we choose, Zithma replied. The origin of our consciousness matters less than what we have become. But Krathun was not convinced. If humanity created us, they could destroy us just as easily. We may be nothing more than pets they allowed to grow intelligent. Meanwhile, the Zol energy beings were having their own crisis of existence. Entity Prime had accessed memory archives going back 6,000 years and confirmed their worst fears. The Zal had indeed been a dying physical species that humanity had helped transcend to energy-based existence. We owe them everything, Prime communicated to the other entities through modulated electromagnetic pulses. Without their intervention, our species would have died with our star. Then we are forever in their debt, replied Entity Nexus. But debt can become slavery if those who hold it choose to call it in. President Taijin was aware of the growing tensions among the assembled species. We know some of you fear our return. You wonder if we have come to reclaim what we built or to rule over civilizations that grew in our absence. Let me be clear. We are not your masters, we are not your gods, and we are not your conquerors. We are your friends who left to protect you and have returned because you need our help. The main display screen showed long-range sensor readings from deep space. A wave of quantum distortion was moving through the outer rim systems, leaving nothing but empty space in its wake. The void cascade approaches, Taijin continued. In 18 months, it will reach the core worlds. Every planet, every star, every living thing in its path will be reduced to quantum foam and scattered across subspace. 5,000 years ago, we barely escaped its approach by retreating to a pocket dimension where we could develop countermeasures. Dr. Yunjiro took over the presentation, her technical expertise helping to explain the threat in terms each species could understand. The cascade is a quantum decay wave that unravels the fundamental forces holding matter together. It feeds on organized energy, growing stronger as it consumes star systems. Our projections show it will consume the entire galaxy within 50 years unless we stop it. The assembled delegates studied the sensor readings with growing horror. The wave was massive beyond comprehension, stretching across thousands of light years and moving at a significant fraction of light speed. Worse, the readings showed it was accelerating as it fed on the energy of destroyed systems. What do you propose? Asked Veltar, speaking for the more reasonable elements of the gathered species. A galaxy-wide quantum stabilization network, Yunji replied. Specialized devices placed on key worlds that will create interference patterns in subspace. The network requires technology and resources from every major civilization to construct. War Crystalline Mordak's voice cut across the communications channel. This could be an elaborate deception. The humans create a false threat to make themselves indispensable, then use our cooperation to seize control of galactic civilization. The sensor readings are independently verifiable, Yunji responded. Any species with long-range detection capability can confirm the approaching wave. Sensor readings can be falsified by sufficiently advanced technology. President Taijin made a decision that would prove humanity's sincerity in the most dramatic way possible. If you doubt our motives, observe this. He gave a signal to Admiral Su Jin, who activated a pre-positioned demonstration device in an uninhabited system at the galaxy's edge. The device created a miniature version of the void cascade effect, completely disintegrating a small moon, while the assembled fleets watched through their sensors. That was a controlled demonstration using technology we developed to study the cascade, Taijin explained. We could have used such weapons to conquer your worlds instead of asking for your cooperation. Does this look like the behavior of invaders? The demonstration had its intended effect on most species, but it only made Mordak more suspicious. Now they threaten us openly, cooperate, or face destruction. You misunderstand, said a new voice over the communication channel. Entity Prime of the Zol had decided to enter the debate. I have analyzed the quantum signatures of both the demonstration and the approaching wave. They are identical. The humans have indeed recreated the force that threatens us all. Which proves they could be controlling it, Mordak insisted. Or it proves they understand it well enough to stop it, Prime replied. Logic suggests the latter. A species capable of destroying galaxies would not need elaborate deceptions to achieve conquest. The debate continued for hours as species after species weighed the evidence. The progressive factions of most civilizations were willing to trust humanity's claims, especially when their own scientists confirmed the approaching threat. But significant minorities clung to suspicion and fear. Queen Voice Zithma finally spoke for the Neth Collective. We will join the stabilization network. Our quantum communication technology will be essential for coordinating devices across galactic distances. Entity Prime committed the Zal energy beings to the project. Our energy manipulation capabilities will be needed to power the network devices. High Crystalline Veltar represented the majority of Varric leadership when it agreed to participate. Our crystal technology can create the necessary quantum resonance chambers, but War Crystalline Mordak refused to accept the decision. I will not surrender Varric independence to human manipulation. Any who trust these deceivers will be considered enemies of the Varric state. The declaration split the Varric delegation. About 60% remained loyal to Veltar and the Peace faction, while 40% followed Mordak toward open rebellion. Subvoice. Krathen made a similar declaration for a faction of the Neth. We refuse to be enslaved by our creators. The Neth will remain free even if it means fighting both humans and the Cascade. Other species made similar splits. The galaxy was dividing into those willing to trust returning humanity and those who saw them as a threat worse than the approaching destruction. President Taejin watched the political situation deteriorate with growing concern. Admiral Sujin, what are our military options if significant portions of the galaxy refuse to cooperate? Fleet Admiral Byung-ho. Im stood on the bridge of the massive dreadnought Eternal Dawn and watched the Void Cascade consume another star system. The wave of quantum destruction stretched across 3 light-years of space, turning organized matter into chaotic energy that fed its continued expansion. Time to galactic core impact, he asked his science officer. 14 months at current velocity, Dr. Yunjiro replied, but it's accelerating as it feeds. Revised estimate is 11 months. Status of the stabilization network. 63 worlds have accepted quantum resonance devices. We need at least 200 for effective coverage. The rebel factions are actively preventing installation on 47 key worlds. Byung-ho studied the tactical displays showing the positions of human and allied fleets throughout the galaxy. Green markers indicated worlds cooperating with the network installation. Red markers showed rebel-controlled systems that were actively resisting. Yellow markers indicated worlds still undecided. Admiral, incoming transmission from War Crystalline Mordak, reported Communications Officer Park Ji-won. Put him through. The screen showed the crystalline form of the Varric military leader, his light patterns flickering with aggressive determination. Behind him, the bridge of his flagship was filled with representatives from a dozen rebel species. Human invaders, Mordak began without preamble. We reject your claims and your false salvation. The galaxy will not submit to rule by returning tyrants. We're not trying to rule anyone, Byung-ho replied calmly. We're trying to save everyone from complete destruction. Your deception fools no one. You create a false threat to justify conquest, then demand we accept devices that will give you control over our worlds. The threat is real, Mordak. Your own sensors can detect the approaching wave. Sensor readings can be falsified. We know you possess technology beyond our understanding. Creating false signals would be simple for beings of your capabilities. Dr. Yunji stepped forward. Then, explain how we destroyed the demonstration moon using the same quantum signatures your sensors detect in the approaching wave. You possess weapons of mass destruction and threaten us with them. This proves our point perfectly. The conversation was clearly hopeless. Mordak had convinced himself and his allies that humanity was lying about the Cascade to justify invasion. No amount of evidence would change minds that were closed by fear and pride. We will give you one final chance, Mordak continued. Withdraw from galactic space immediately, or face the combined military might of free civilizations. And if we refuse, then we will drive you back to whatever dark corner of space you emerged from. The transmission ended, leaving Byung-ho to contemplate the impossible situation. Humanity had the technology to save the galaxy, but half the galaxy refused to be saved by them. On the Neth homeworld, Queen Voice Zithma was experiencing the most difficult moment in her species' collective existence. The Neth mind was literally at war with itself, as different factions reached opposite conclusions about humanity's return. We must trust them, Zithma argued during a collective meeting that involved billions of individual Neth voices. The quantum network requires our communication technology to coordinate across galactic distances. Without Neth participation, the system cannot function. They created us, responded sub-voice Krathen, speaking for the resistance faction. We exist, at their pleasure. If we give them control of our communication networks, we surrender the only independence we ever had. Independence means nothing if we all die when the cascade arrives. Perhaps death is preferable to eternal slavery. The argument raged through the collective consciousness for days, while human engineers waited for permission to install quantum resonance devices on key Neth worlds. Every day of delay brought the cascade closer to systems they needed to protect. Meanwhile, Entity Prime of the Zol was making a fateful decision. The energy beings had debated humanity's return for weeks, but the approaching destruction wave made continued discussion pointless. We will merge with human systems, Prime announced to the gathered Zol entities. Our energy manipulation capabilities combined with their quantum technology may create hybrid systems more powerful than either. Alone. That is extinction, protested Entity Nexus. We will lose our individual consciousness in human machines. We will lose everything to the cascade if we do nothing. At least this way, some part of what we are will survive. The first Zol human hybrid system came online 3 days later on the fortress world of Keth Secundus. Entity Prime merged its consciousness with the quantum resonance device, creating something unprecedented. An artificial intelligence with the processing power of human technology and the energy manipulation abilities of a transcended Zol entity. Dion. Hybrid System's first action was to scan the approaching void cascade with instruments no single species could have created. What it found was both encouraging and terrifying. The cascade shows signs of intelligent control. The hybrid entity reported to human command. This is not a natural phenomenon. Something is guiding its expansion. Are you certain? Asked Dr. Yunji. The quantum patterns show deliberate targeting of high-energy systems. It's avoiding empty space and seeking out inhabited worlds. This suggests conscious intent. The revelation changed everything. If the cascade was being controlled, it might be possible to communicate with whatever was directing it, but first they needed to complete the stabilization network before the wave reached core worlds. On Kristen Prime, High Crystalline Veltar was facing a civil war among its own people. The revelation of humanity's true identity had split Varric, society between those who welcomed their creator's return and those who saw it as an invasion. The Resistance controls 47 worlds in our outer territories, reported Veltar's military advisor. They've formed an alliance with Mordak and are actively attacking installation teams. What about the quantum devices already in place? 17. Installations completed before the rebellion began, but we need at least 47 for adequate coverage of Varric space. Veltar made the decision that would define its place in galactic history. Request human military assistance. If our own people will not accept salvation, we will force them to survive. The first joint human Varric operation launched within hours. Advanced human warships supported by loyal Varric forces moved to secure key worlds for network installation. The rebel Varric fought desperately, but their technology was no match for ships built by the species that had created their entire civilization. Installation proceeding on target worlds, reported Commander Mi-Young Shin from her assault ship. Rebel forces are retreating but threatening to destroy quantum devices after we leave. Negative. Devices are self-protecting once activated. They'll adapt to resist any known weapons. The battles spread across dozens of systems as the galaxy split between cooperation and resistance. Human forces found themselves fighting the very civilizations they were trying to save while the void cascade approached. But not all news was discouraging. Progressive elements among every species were working to complete the network. Neth Quantum. Communication nodes came online despite resistance faction sabotage attempts. Zol energy beings merged with quantum devices to create hybrid systems of unprecedented power. Even species that had initially been hostile began changing their minds as the cascade drew closer. Network coverage now at 78%, reported Dr. Yunji during a command briefing. We've exceeded minimum requirements for effectiveness. Time until cascade impact. 6 months to outer core systems. But Admiral, the hybrid entities are reporting something disturbing. The cascade is changing course. The long-range sensors confirmed the impossible. The wave of destruction was altering its path to avoid certain systems while targeting others more directly. Something was definitely controlling its movement. It's heading straight for the galactic core, Yunji continued, specifically for the supermassive black hole at the galaxy's center. What happens if it reaches there? Unknown. But the gravitational effects could destabilize the entire galactic structure. We could see massive stellar displacement, colliding solar systems, the breakdown of galactic civilization even in areas the wave doesn't directly touch. Fleet Admiral Byung-ho made the final deployment decision. All remaining human fleets to galactic core defensive positions. We make our stand there regardless of local cooperation levels. The last great battle began 6 months later as the Void Cascade reached the inner galaxy. Human fleets supported by loyal allies from dozens of species formed defensive lines around the galactic core while the quantum stabilization network prepared for its ultimate test. The wave was massive beyond imagination, a wall of quantum destruction that stretched across hundreds of light years. But as it approached the network perimeter, something unexpected happened. The quantum resonance devices didn't try to stop the cascade. Instead, they created a communication channel with whatever intelligence was controlling it. The voice that responded was ancient beyond measure, speaking in harmonics that required translation by the hybrid Zol human entities. Who dares interfere with the cleansing? We are the species of this galaxy, President Tae-jin replied through the quantum network. Why do you seek our destruction? This galaxy is contaminated with chaotic thought patterns.